June 4, 1942. Akutan Island, Alaska Territory. 1400 hours. Flight Petty Officer Tadayoshi Koga, 19 years old, carrier Ryujo, watched oil stream from his punctured return line. 2 bullets from Dutch Harbor's anti-aircraft fire. Minutes of engine life remaining. His wingmen, Chief Petty Officer Makoto Endo and Petty Officer Tsuguo Shikada, stayed close. Below, a grassy flat. Half-mile inland from Broad Bight, emergency landing site. Koga lowered his landing gear. What his wingmen saw from above: wheels touching grass, then catastrophe. The Zero flipped inverted. Trapped pilot. Orders said destroy any downed Zero, but maybe Koga lived. They couldn't fire. What nobody knew: that crash would hand Americans the answer they desperately needed. 5 weeks later, Lieutenant William Thies flew his PBY Catalina over Akutan by accident. Lost. Dead reckoning gone wrong. Then machinist mate Albert Knack spotted it. Upside down. Nearly intact. A Japanese Zero, the most feared fighter in the Pacific. And it was theirs. By summer 1942, the Zero dominated every sky it entered. 12-to-1 kill ratio against Chinese pilots. April 42 over Ceylon. 36 Zeros faced 60 British aircraft. Result: 27 British planes destroyed. 1 Zero lost. American doctrine: run. Official tactical guidance to pilots facing Zeros: disengage. Don't dogfight. The plane seemed supernatural. Fast, nimble, could turn inside anything. At Coral Sea Midway, early Guadalcanal, American pilots reported the same thing. Enter a turning fight, you die. Intelligence knew some facts. Claire Chennault's Flying Tigers reported its strengths. Wrecked Zeros from Pearl Harbor gave structural data. 9 airframes shipped to Dayton, Ohio. Studied, measured, photographed, but nobody had flown one. Not truly tested it under power, through maneuvers, pushed to limits. First week of July 1942. Patrol Squadron 41 discovered Koga's Zero. 3 recovery attempts. Akutan's terrain fought them. Finally, mid-July they extracted it. Loaded onto barge, then USS St. Mihiel to Seattle. August 1st, delivered San Diego Naval Air Station North Island received a crated puzzle. Vertical stabilizer bent, rudder twisted, wingtips crumpled, flaps damaged, landing gear sheared off completely, canopy cracked. 3-blade Sumitomo propeller nicked but usable. But the Sakai engine? Nearly perfect. 24-hour military police guard. No souvenir hunters. Mechanics worked carefully. Straightened, welded, fabricated. Red Hinomaru painted over. Blue circle, white star applied. 6 weeks of painstaking work. September 20th, 1942. Lieutenant Commander Eddie Sanders, 32, approached the repainted Zero. First American to fly enemy's premier weapon. Sanders had logged thousands of hours. Test pilot. New aircraft like mechanics, no engines. But this? Different. He climbed in. Cockpit smaller than American fighters. Controls lighter. Engine started smooth. 800 horsepower Nakajima Sakai radial. Not the 1800 of a Thunderbolt, but efficient, taxied. Took off. Climbed. What happened in the next 24 flights would save thousands of American lives. Sanders flew methodically. Performance tests. Standard Navy protocol. Climb rates, dive speeds, turning radius, roll rates. Numbers. Data. Facts. First flight revealed everything. The very first flight exposed weaknesses of the Zero which our pilots could exploit with proper tactics. His report, September-October 1942, classified top secret, stated the obvious nobody had seen. Immediately apparent was the fact that the ailerons froze up at speeds above 200 knots. 200 knots. About 230 miles per hour. Below that speed? Zero turned like magic. Flick the stick, instant response. Above 200 knots? Ailerons required enormous force. Rolling maneuvers slow, laborious. Pilot fighting against airflow. Sanders tested it repeatedly. 180 knots, crisp roll. 200 knots. sluggish. 220 knots, practically immovable. Second discovery, equally critical. It rolled to the left much easier than to the right. Asymmetric response. Engineering compromise in aileron linkage. Left roll, manageable effort. Right roll, even at lower speeds, harder. Third weakness, potentially fatal. Engine cut out under negative acceleration due to its float-type carburetor. Push the stick forward. Negative G, float carburetor floods. Engine quits, not surge. Not hesitation. Complete stoppage, American fighters. Pressure carburetors. Continued running through negative G. Sanders flew the Zero 24 times in 25 days. September 20th through October 15th. Each flight confirmed initial findings. Each added detail. Then Commander Frederick Trapnell took over. Trapnell, 40, Director of Flight Testing at Anacostia Naval Air Station. Best test pilot in the Navy. Flew every American aircraft. Now flew the Zero October 6, 1942. Trapnell made a statement to intelligence officers. Revealing. Almost anticlimactic. The general impression of the airplane is exactly as originally created by intelligence, including the performance, meaning we already knew most of this. Combat pilots at Coral Sea, Midway, Guadalcanal had reported Zero's characteristics. Word circulated. Experienced aviators learned. But now they had proof. Numbers, repeatable tests, and tactics. Trapnell flew mock dogfights. Sanders in the Zero, Trapnell in new American fighters. 4U Corsair, F-6F Hellcat prototypes, even F-4F Wildcats. Pattern emerged immediately. Below 15,000 feet, below 200 knots, in turning fight. 0-1, every time. Turn radius too tight. American fighters couldn't match. But change the parameters? Trapnell dove from 20,000 feet. Built speed to 250 knots. Came at Sanders fast. Sanders tried to roll, evade. Couldn't. Control forces too high. Trapnell fired imaginary guns. Kill. Sanders tried the opposite. Zero chasing Trapnell's Corsair. Trapnell pushed stick forward. Negative G dive. His Corsair's engine continued full power. Behind him, Sanders' Zero engine quit. 7 seconds of silence while carburetor cleared. 7 seconds watching the target accelerate away. When engine restarted, Trapnell was gone. Repositioned. Altitude advantage restored. The answer was speed and altitude. Don't turn, don't slow down, don't let them set terms. Tactics developed quickly. Maintain altitude above 20,000 feet, where turbo-supercharged American engines excelled, and Zeros gasped in thin air. Dive attacks only. Build speed above 230 miles per hour. Fire in slashing pass. Don't turn to pursue. Zoom back to altitude using speed and power. If caught low and slow, push into negative G dive immediately. Use pressure carburetor advantage. Accelerate to 250 knots. Then execute hard right roll. Zero couldn't follow through both maneuvers. Lieutenant Melvin Hoffman, test pilot, checked out in the Zero. Then trained new Hellcat and Corsair pilots. Flew the Zero against them. Showed them exactly how it moved. Where it was lethal. Where it was vulnerable. Young pilots learned viscerally. Not from briefing, from seeing. From trying to shoot Hoffman and failing when they made mistakes. From succeeding when they followed procedure. Data published rapidly. Informational Intelligence Summary 59. Technical Aviation Intelligence, Brief Number 3. Tactical and Technical Trends. Number 5. Distributed throughout Pacific Fleet. Every fighter squadron. Every carrier air group. October 1942 forward. American tactics shifted. The impact showed immediately. Marine Captain Kenneth Walsh, flying F-4U Corsairs, remembered it precisely. With a Zero on my tail I did a split S, and with its nose down and full throttle, my Corsair picked up speed fast. I wanted at least 240 knots, preferably 260. Then, as prescribed, I rolled hard right. Walsh survived. The Zero couldn't follow. Tracers passed beneath his belly. From information that came from Koga's Zero, I knew the Zero rolled more slowly to the right than to the left. If I hadn't known which way to turn or roll, I'd have probably rolled to my left. Left roll, Walsh dead. Zero could match it. Right roll, Walsh lived. Simple as that. Walsh finished the war with 17 aerial victories. All Zeros Commander William Leonard, fighter ace, later said, "The captured Zero was a treasure. To my knowledge, no other captured machine has ever unlocked so many secrets at a time when the need was so great." By late 1943, the Akutan Zero traveled to Washington, D.C. Anacostia Naval Air Station. Proximity to Langley Memorial Aeronautical Laboratory. Wind tunnel testing. Transported after sundown. Undercover. Still secret despite thousands now knowing the tactics. Irony. Months later displayed publicly at Washington National Airport. War Bond Rally. 25th anniversary of airmail service. Japanese fighter with American star. Crowds photographed it. Joint Fighter Conference, October 1944. Naval Air Station, Patuxent River. 1 naval aviator. 9 manufacturer test pilots flew the Akutan Zero alongside newest American fighters. Conclusion. Dangerous airplane to dogfight at slow speeds, but also excellent for low-altitude offensive, combat or any turning flight where radius of turn or maneuverability is required as prime. Translation. Don't fight its fight. By 1944, doctrine changed throughout Pacific Fleet. Results showed in numbers. 5th Air Force, Colonel Neil Kirby commanding 348th Fighter Group, even used these tactics with P-47 Thunderbolts against Japanese Army fighters. Kirby's unit arrived New Guinea June 1943. P-47s, designed for high-altitude European combat, seemed wrong for Pacific. But Kirby knew the Zero intelligence, knew the pattern, high-altitude approach, diving attacks, never turn, use speed advantage. September through December 1943, 348th Fighter Group claimed 150 victories, lost 8 pilots. Kirby himself scored 22 victories. October 11, 1943, shot down 6 Japanese fighters in single mission. Outnumbered 40-4. Used altitude, speed, diving attacks, Medal of Honor. The Akutan Zero's lessons spread through every theater. Statistical impact measurable. Pre-Akutan testing, June-September 1942. Zero kill ratio over American fighters averaged 2.5 to 1 in Zero's favor. Post-Akutan implementation, October 1942 forward. Ratio reversed. By Guadalcanal's end, February 1943, American fighters achieved 1.7 to 1 advantage. By Philippine Sea, June 1944, Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. F-6F Hellcats destroyed approximately 400 Japanese aircraft. Lost 30 Hellcats, 13 to 1 American favor. Not because Hellcat was perfect, because pilots knew exactly how to fight. Japanese command noticed immediately. Captured documents, post-war interrogations revealed awareness. Japanese naval historian and JASDF Lieutenant General Masatake Okumiya, post-war statement. Acquisition of Akutan Zero was no less serious than defeat at Battle of Midway. Japanese Navy aviation knew by late 1942 Americans had changed tactics. New Zero's weaknesses were being exploited systematically. They attempted improvements. A6M3, A6M5 models. Stronger wings for faster dives. Better roll rates. Heavier armament. But fundamental design remained. Low wing loading for tight turns meant light structure. Light structure meant no armor. No armor meant vulnerability to American .50 caliber. Machine guns. The Zero's greatest strength, maneuverability through lightweight, became fatal weakness when opponents refused to turn. German Luftwaffe pilots, aware of Zero's reputation, studied intelligence reports, noted the pattern. One captured German document, 1943, stated American tactical shift showed enemy learns and adapts faster than anticipated. British Fleet Air Arm, Operating Pacific 1944-1945 received same intelligence. Applied same tactics, same results. Tadayoshi. Koga never knew his airplane's survival would doom Japanese naval aviation's primary weapon. February 1945. Akutan Zero, now training aircraft at North Island, taxied for takeoff. Routine flight, teaching new pilots. Curtis SB-2C Helldiver lost control during own taxi. Rammed the Zero. Helldiver's propeller sliced through. Zero destroyed. Pieces. From wreckage, Commander William Leonard salvaged instruments. Gauges. Donated to National Museum of the United States Navy. Alaska Heritage Museum received pieces. Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum received fragments. Most of Koga's Zero, gone. Scattered. But what it taught? Permanent. Koga himself received burial on Akutan Island. Wingmen hadn't known location. American recovery crew found him still in cockpit. Harness held him suspended, head down. Neck broken, instant, buried him properly. Military honors. Enemy but warrior. 1947. American Graves Registration Service Team exhumed body. Reburied on Akutan Island, further down Aleutian chain. Marked as unidentified. 988. American author Jim Reardon, working with Japanese businessman Minoru Kawamoto, located records. Identified remains. Koga's family notified 53 years after his death. Koga's sacrifice, unintentional but total, credited with saving 500 to 800 American pilot lives. Conservative estimate, possibly more. His wingmen, Endo and Shikata, survived the war. Never knew their decision not to strafe Koga's plane had such consequence. Thought they showed mercy to potentially living friend. Actually preserved intelligence advantage that changed war. American pilots who flew against Zeros after October 1942 never knew the 19-year-old Japanese pilot whose crash made their survival possible, but the tactics remained. Passed through squadrons, training, combat reports. Each engagement reinforced lessons. Fast, never slow. High, never low. Dive, never turn. Right roll, not left. Negative G when trapped. Simple rules, easily remembered. Repeatedly effective. Today, naval aviation teaches Akutan Zero case study. Not as history, as principle. Know your enemy's limitations better than your own capabilities. Pieces of Koga's Zero rest in museums. Small gauges. Fragment of wing. Section of fuselage. Visitors ask guides. This beat American fighters? Guides explain. Only when we fought its fight. Once we fought our fight, war changed. The lesson extends beyond fighters and tactics. Applies to any competitive situation. Military, business, sports, life. You don't defeat superior opponent by matching their strengths. You defeat them by exploiting weaknesses they don't know matter. Zero was faster in turns. Irrelevant if you don't turn. Zero was lighter and more nimble at low altitude. Irrelevant if you stay high. Zero's carburetor design saved weight. Fatal when opponent pushes negative. American designers didn't build better turning fighters to beat Zeros. They already had adequate tools. They just learned to use them correctly. Commander Trapnell's October 6 statement proved it. The general impression of the airplane is exactly as originally created by intelligence. Nothing new discovered. Everything confirmed. Difference was proof. Repeatable tests. Training against actual Zero. Muscle memory. Confidence. Pilots stopped fearing the Zero's reputation, started respecting its actual capabilities, and avoiding situations where those capabilities mattered. By war's end, experienced Japanese Zero pilots nearly extinct. Shot down, lost at sea, casualties of attrition. Replacements had weeks of training. Americans had months, plus tested tactics, plus technical advantage. Final year 1945, Zero became target practice. Same aircraft that dominated 1941-1942. Nothing changed about the Zero. Everything changed about how Americans fought it. That change started June 4, 1942, when Tadayoshi Koga's landing gear hit bog instead of solid ground, and continued September 20th when Eddie Sanders throttled up and took off, beginning 24 flights that decoded myth into manageable mathematics. War is information, tactics, adaptation, learning faster than enemy. Koga's Zero taught that lesson perfectly. Americans learned it well. There's a principle in warfare. Perfect intelligence defeats superior force. Akutan Zero proved it, not through dramatic reversal, through patient testing, documentation, distribution, training, application, through pilots like Kenneth Walsh rolling right instead of left and living. Because of it, through units like Kirby's 348th using altitude and speed against expectations, through steady accumulation of small advantages creating overwhelming victory. Next time you face impossible opponent, remember Tadayoshi Koga's Zero don't match their strength. Find their weakness, the one they don't think matters. It does. Ask the thousands of American pilots who came home because Eddie Sanders spent 24 days learning how to roll right.